Hello, Confident Eaters. Happy Thursday. I am here with a very special guest today, one of my best friends, Zareen. We are going to be interviewing her as a natural eater, but before we dive into it, I do have a free workshop coming up this Monday, the 16th. I have a workshop on how to create your binge-free brain in 2025. This is going to be talking about how I learned how to stop binge eating, rewiring my brain. And so if you want to come, the link in the show notes will be there to register. So Zareen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm super excited to be here. My name is Zareen. I'm 24 and I am from Houston, Texas. And yeah, I've been listening to your podcast a little bit as well, and I'm a huge fan. So yeah, again, just excited to be here.
Thank you. And I wanted to have Zareen on the podcast because she has, for me, always been like an example of someone who has a very healthy relationship with food in their body, which I feel like is so hard to find nowadays. And I know for me in my journey, like I just wish I had someone like you to talk to like give me advice. And because it always seems like this mysterious person, even though I was a natural eater before I started dieting, it was really hard for me to figure out like how to get back to that and like what my eating habits were even like before that. I didn't even like remember because I was so young when I started dieting. So I think her perspective is going to be so useful today. We're going to talk all about her history with food and how she thinks about food in her body now. So why don't you start with just like a little background about like what food was like for you growing up and where you are now with things.
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, I actually did have a bit of an almond mom. She was very strict about snacks in the house, wouldn't really want us to go out and eat fast food. She also grew up in a very different culture. We're immigrants from Pakistan, and so she really just cooked a lot of our traditional foods at home, and that's mostly what I ate and grew up with. So I actually didn't really like have a taste for like the fast food restaurants as well. And also the just disparity between the quality of the foods that she would cook versus what I would eat out just really never encouraged me to go out and seek those unhealthier food options that you have like here living in America. So yeah, I didn't have snacks in the house, and honestly, I kept that habit as an adult as well. I don't really snack. Growing up, we would just have 3 like protein-based meals, and yeah, I've never felt the need to change that because it's always worked for me. And I also would feel like then I would feel hunger at the natural times that I'm supposed to feel hunger. Otherwise, like when I did snack, I wouldn't really be hungry during meal times. And so I just didn't really feel the need to.
And did your parents, were they ever dieters or did they just kind of eat naturally too?
Yeah, actually, my mom was a dieter, or actually, I'll say she still is. She was one of those women who's just always been on a diet. They'll always be like, oh, I'm going to eat less of this and that. Sometimes, a lot of the time, she'll skip dinner. And seeing that a lot, like as a child, made me really sad because she's such a beautiful woman. Like, definitely not just saying that because she's my mom. Like, she is just stunning, gorgeous, looks 15 years younger than she is. But I think because she had a certain body type growing up that when she had me and my sister and that changed and she was in a different part of her life, she thought that she had to go back to the way that she looked, you know, in her teenage years, which just isn't natural. And it led to her just not really eating meals. But then seeing that just made me feel really sad. I would like try to encourage her to like, you know, eat more. It just never sat right with me and it just didn't feel natural. And then, yeah, she used to have these 2 guilty pleasures, and those were Cheetos and Coke. And so like her favorite snack every day would be like Cheetos and Coke. And then one day out of nowhere, she just stopped cold turkey and then also slowed down with her dinners a lot too. So those are a few things I did notice growing up.
So I want to point out a few things. One, I think it's very interesting how you still like remember her like 2 foods. And that does show that like children are always watching and they are picking up on the eating habits that like parents are laying the foundation of. But I also think it's really interesting how you didn't get passed down those eating habits, because when I work with a lot of moms, they're really scared about like, I don't want to pass down my behaviors to my children. And I think you're a really good example of someone who actually went the opposite way and who saw that and it felt like a lot of compassion for her and like a lot of sadness that she was going through that. And like, you didn't want that for yourself. You saw probably how miserable she was and like how hard it was to do that dieting life. And so that might have even stirred you in the other way where it's like, I don't want that for myself. And so I think that's just a good example of however children end up, even if your child ends up with an eating disorder, ends up dieting, ends up doing the same exact eating habits that the mom was doing, it's still not necessarily like all the parents' fault, because we have so many other cultural influences around us too that all contribute to our relationship with food. But I also think it's really nice to hear that you were modeled like a very whole food model around food. Like, it sounds like they were very filling meals, they were healthy, they were home cooked. And so you got a good example of like, you know, what does good cooking look like, and how can I create delicious meals for myself, and like valuing food that tastes yummy versus just like the diet food and the healthy food. Because on the other side, I think when parents like really force like this ultimate like healthy ideal, like we have to always eat this certain way, then people can also rebel against it and want to like go the other way of like, oh, I had to eat healthy my whole life, like I want to eat whatever I want now.
Absolutely. And honestly, I mean, her food is still my favorite to this day, and I'm so grateful that I did get to, you know, grow up with home cooked foods. I think it's really easy if you don't have parents who are willing to cook for you to just go and get fast food because it's a cheap and fast option. So that's definitely like such a barrier for different people to start healthy eating habits.
And so have you ever dieted before?
So actually, no, I haven't. I've never dieted before. I've definitely been surrounded by diets my whole life in terms of the woman in my family. There's a lot of body shaming that I've grown up with in my family. Just seeing the way that they would talk about themselves and other women, it always, you know, just made me feel sad that they would feel the need to project those insecurities onto other people. I always sort of blocked myself from those mindsets because I didn't think it was healthy. I also love food. I mean, I love food. I love eating, and I think like what a great thing that you can fuel your body that does so much good for you with things that you like. And yeah, I've never felt the need to diet. Yeah.
So tell us about your personal trainer story, because the first time Zareen told me this, we were on a beach in Hawaii. That's where me and Zareen met, is at a co-living in Hawaii, and now we've been best friends since. But I remember we were on the beach and she was telling me about this experience with a personal trainer and the meal plan she gave her. And it like stuck in my mind forever because it was such a unique perspective that I'd never heard before. So tell me about like your experience working with a personal trainer and like what happened when you went on the meal plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So I really started taking fitness a bit more seriously in the past few years. And part of that experience for me was getting a personal trainer, and I loved her. She was absolutely incredible. She was a bit newer to being a professional trainer, and she did actually put me on a meal plan, and it was a bulking meal plan. So I feel like the particular gym I went to, it was specifically like a weightlifting gym. So a lot of the times the goal is to just gain muscle and to get bigger, and you're surrounded by huge weights and nobody's doing Pilates. That's just not the vibe. So yeah, she put me on a bulking meal plan, and so that meal plan consisted of 3 full meals and 3 big snacks. And when I say full meals, I mean part of my breakfast was 6 hard-boiled eggs, which was just
That's a lot of eggs. I love eggs, and I don't even eat that many.
I could never. But I did actually, you know, I really wanted to give the meal plan my best shot. And so I did buy all of the ingredients that were necessary to go through with the meal plan for the week. I remember going grocery shopping, checking everything off. I bought like 3-4 cartons of eggs. And then my first breakfast, I just remember trying to scarf those eggs down and hating it. And I was like feeling like, oh my God, like I can't even get this breakfast down. Like I was swallowing the eggs and I was drinking with water to get it down. I mean, it's so dry. And it just felt kind of painful. And then as I was going through the meal plan throughout the day, I mean, I was so full by lunchtime, I didn't even make it to dinner. I didn't have the 5th snack. I didn't have the 3rd snack. I didn't have the dinner. I was so full by lunch, I thought I was going to throw up. And I was like, wait, this is wrong. I shouldn't, like a diet that's helping me be my best self should not make me feel this way. I was really confused.
Wait, you should say that again. That a diet is supposed to make me feel like my best self, and I like shouldn't be feeling this way.
Yes.
Like everyone needs to hear that. Like if your diet is not making you feel like your best self, it's probably not a good diet.
It's not a good diet. And I immediately Literally, like, listening to my body cues, I was like, I hate this. I feel like I'm going to throw up. Literally couldn't even move. Like, I was so full. And I don't even remember the amount of calories that was in this diet, but definitely for someone of my size, it was double or triple the amount of calories that I should be consuming. Just absolutely unnatural. And also, if you do choose to bulk, there are so many healthier ways to go about it than just doubling your food intake in a day.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely was not the way to go. And yeah, I figured that out day one. I just tossed the meal plan out the window, never tried that again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was a huge learning experience for me. And I was like, okay, well, I do have fitness goals. Like, I do want to tone, I do want to gain muscle, but not to that extent. And that's when I completely revamped what I wanted to get out of the gym. And that was to just have the best version of the body that I already have. I love my body. I love everything it does for me. And I think, you know, that if you choose to shame or hate on it, then that creates such an unhealthy relationship that you just end up suffering mentally and physically. And I wanted to give myself the chance to really grow into the best version of myself. Mm-hmm. I feel like growing up with the sort of body type that I have, I mean, there were so many Instagram trends, like especially with the rise of the Kardashians, where it's like women are more curvy, and I never had that. But it's like when women go to the gym, a lot of the times they want to, like, you know, improve their glutes or their legs and just have a certain body type. And I could definitely double my diet and just level down on those leg exercises. But at the end of the day, would that make me happy? Like, I would be working against my natural body composition, and it just didn't feel right to me. So I was like, okay, like, how can I feel sexy and good in my body? And it's like taking my current body figure, adding tone and some muscle mass that in the right way, in with a diet that feels right for me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that really just brought a lot of light to my journey, what I want for myself fitness-wise. Yeah.
And what I admire about that so much is, like, personal trainers are like this professional, right? You're paying them good money, I'm sure, you know? And most people so blindly follow professionals' advice, and everyone is a professional nowadays. You see an Instagram influencer and you give them all of your self-autonomy, like, away to this Instagram influencer who knows nothing about you or your body. So when you're looking at these things, it's like, oh, someone can give me a meal plan, someone can tell me what to eat. Even something as much as like a guideline of like, oh, you're supposed to eat 3 meals a day. Like, how do you know? Like, we don't know what's best for your body. I always tell my clients, I never know what's best for your body. My job as the coach is to help them figure out what's best for their body and like help them guide and trust that wisdom. And that's something you do so well, is like trust your own inner wisdom about what your body needs. And so even though you had like this big fancy meal plan, to me, it sounds like the personal trainer kind of had your goals in mind, but also kind of put on her goals of what she thought you wanted. Like, oh, don't you want to gain a ton of muscle and like a big booty and like have all of this and within 2 months, and like here's this giant bulking meal plan that can get you that. But you're like, wait, no, maybe that's not my goal. And in society, we often get sucked into these goals of like what everyone else is doing, of, well, this person's trying to look this way, or everyone around us is always trying to lose weight, so I should probably try to lose weight too. But no one ever like sits down and questions, like, do I actually want to lose weight? Like, is that actually a really important goal to me right now? Or is that what I just think I need to do in order to be worthy in today's society? And like most people, if you sit down and you're like, is actually losing 10 pounds that important to me? It's like, maybe not. And it's really weird for people to realize that it was just something that society put on them. And so I think in that experience, you're really showing like this realization of like, what I want is what matters most, not what I think I should do or what someone tells me to do. And like my body has the answers for what I uniquely need.
100%. Like, I feel like when I entered the gym, I felt very new to it. And so I was just seeking advice and help and tips from professionals. And so when she told me that I should aim for A, B, and C, I just took that with a grain of salt. But then when I actually tried to apply her teachings in that way, it just didn't resonate with me. And that's honestly okay. Like you said, like, they're not going to know everything about you and your body and your needs, and sometimes it takes a little bit to get to know what you actually want, but then when you do know what you want, you can act on it.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about your motivating reason to go to the gym is to burn calories, or has it always been for like another reason?
Yeah, actually, that has never been my reason to go to the gym. So About me, it's actually really easy for me to lose weight, very difficult for me to put on weight. So another reason why like I have like my 3 full protein meals a day is because like I have that calendar just in my head, like I never miss a meal because I do want to make sure that I am like at a healthy weight. So when I go to the gym, I do think it's important for me to like get my steps and movement in. Cardio isn't really that big of a priority to me just because what I do want is to tone and gain muscle mass. And so, no, I've never thought about calorie loss, but I think as I've started to eat more protein in my meals, I've started focusing on weightlifting a bit more just so that I get my natural calorie loss through weightlifting, but not necessarily like, oh, I have to run a certain amount of minutes on the treadmill every single day. That to me sounds exhausting. I don't want to do that, but maybe that's what works for other people. It just depends on what you feel is right for you.
Yeah. And I know I just said that how everyone eats is uniquely them, but I'm going to ask you a couple questions that I know like were burning in the back of my mind that I just wish I could ask someone on my journey. So like, what is a typical day of eating like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the mornings, I normally eat like a lighter breakfast just because I don't really like feel that hungry in the mornings. And so like I listen to my natural cue and I'm like, okay, I'll have something light. Normally I'll have like a protein oatmeal and I'll have bananas or some sort of fruit with that. And I'll just drink some water, and that's my typical breakfast. As for lunch, it really varies. My favorite protein is fish and chicken. So normally I'll have like some homemade chicken or fish. I'll cook up some salmon, have that with a bed of rice, some veggies, or I'll go out, we'll have Chipotle right next door, maybe grab some of that. I also really love pho. There's like a really good Vietnamese spot by my house, so I'll go and get some healthy Vietnamese noodles. But yeah, that's sort of a good like filling lunch just to fuel me until dinner, which is normally when I have like my biggest meal. Either that's a different protein or something more fun, or I'll typically go out to dinner with my friends or family. And yeah, that's typically what it looks like. And I'll end with dessert. I'll give myself a sweet treat at the end. I love chocolate. I have a sweet tooth, so I'll have like a couple little pieces of Toblerone ready for me in the pantry because if we have like other like candies, then like I do eat them. So I'm like, okay, if I just have a Toblerone bar, I'll just eat one and feel satisfied for the rest of the day. Yeah.
And how do you decide what foods to eat?
Honestly, whatever I want, like whatever I'm feeling, I will like allow myself to eat that. Like I think the reason I'm able to do that and still maintain a healthy diet is because I do have a lot of foods and I have a lot of filters in what I am eating. So for example, I grew up never drinking soda. I don't drink soda. I actually usually avoid juices in America as well, except for when I'm traveling, then we're natural. But in America, stay away from the juices. I usually just have water with my meals, even when I'm at restaurants. I don't order a drink, I order water. And then I also typically try to order healthier meats like chicken or fish. Or I always like have in the back of my head, like, okay, like is the meal I'm about to consume healthy? I do try to avoid fast food. I don't really eat fast food. I'll say I have fast food maybe twice a month max, just because it doesn't align with what I want to put in my body. And so with those filters already on, if I'm craving something slightly different, I'll let myself have it with those filters on because I already feel like I'm doing enough for myself.
Like Zareen, as she's talking about this, it wasn't a hard and fast rule. Like it doesn't, like to you, you kind of are describing them like they're rules, but to me, like as a coach, I'm like, I can tell this is not a rule for you because she's like, well, in general, I don't have juice, but like when I'm traveling around Mexico, like I have juice. Like she is not sitting over here stressing about, I'm guessing, like, oh my gosh, what if Mexico has juices? What am I going to do then? I don't have juice. Or like, what happens if I am really hungry and I need to go to fast food and I don't have fast food? You're like, no, I just like have fast food because I know I don't have it every day. So I call that more of like a guideline of like, you know, you have these filters for what guides you're eating. Do you ever feel like restricted by these guidelines that you have?
Honestly, no. Like I feel like I give myself a lot of freedom in choosing the foods that I eat. I know that if I do over restrict myself, I'll just break those barriers down and just full run it and eat whatever I want. And so just having those filters on, like those guidelines, as you said, I mean, yes, like they're casual enough where it's like I don't feel any like pressure to meet them, but I am meeting them. And it does come very naturally to me, and I've just naturally done this my whole life, and also just have it a little bit in the back of my head. I do think about my health as well, and it's like, what do I want for myself in like the future? And so keeping those long-term goals in mind is how I create my daily eating habits.
Yeah, so I think that's really important to hear, that you can keep your health in mind. Like, a lot of people think, oh my gosh, if I'm gonna be like this intuitive natural eater, I'm just gonna go off the walls, like I'm gonna crave junk 24/7, all I'm gonna want is sweets. But when you actually talk to someone who is like an intuitive eater, what you'll realize is you naturally just find the ebb and flow of the eating habits, where you actually, your body craves mainly healthy food most of the time. Like, that's genuinely what you want, because you want to feel good. You want to feel energized in your body. You want to be healthy and feel just really energized throughout your life. But that's not something that feels restrictive to you, because you're also not telling yourself, I can never have fast food, you know, no juices, no desserts. It's like, I'm gonna have dessert at night because I love dessert. And me and Zareen love sharing dessert. And I love that you love dessert too. Because I also love dessert, and people just get so regimented of like, and like, I get this because this was me too, of like, well, but how often can I have dessert? Like, how much is normal? And there's no one rule. I'm sure you do not have like a rule of I can only have dessert twice a week or something. It's just kind of like you have it when you want it, and you just enjoy it, and then you move on with your life, and then you know, like, you'll have it again soon, and it's like no big deal. And I think people really need to understand that, like, that's how it's going to be when you're an intuitive eater. It's not going to go off the walls. Now, if you're, you know, listening to my podcast and you're struggling with this, like, it does take some steps to get there, because most of us have been so wrapped up in diet culture for so long that we have like so many rules in our head and we take them so seriously. But it's like, once we start to let go of those rules and just implement like gentle, soft guidelines, like, we'll actually be a lot healthier, because we're not going all or nothing. Like you said, if you put these strict rules on and, you know, no dessert for you this week, you have to wait a week. It's like, well, now I really want it. Now it feels like something I can't have, and it feels like extra special now. So then how do you know when to start eating and when to stop eating?
Yeah, I usually have habits where I eat around the same time every day. So typically when I wake up, I'll have my first couple of calls for work, and then I'll head down, and then I'll just, you know, after my first meeting, I'm like, okay, it's time for my oats. And so I'll just have my oats and my bananas, and then a couple hours later, when I just feel hungry, I'm like, okay, it's lunchtime, maybe around between 12 to 2, and then I'll have like dinner between 6 to 8 with my family or friends. And yeah, so for me, I do like keep a bit of like an internal clock, just because I do know that it is healthier to keep eating at the same times as well. And so just having that in mind, and also just the understanding that I don't want to accidentally skip a meal, I just follow through with the timings and also the hunger that I do just naturally feel at those times.
And what about, how do you know when to stop eating?
Yeah, I have sort of figured out the serving sizes that I usually like with food. And so I will always like serve myself just a little bit less. Like, I'll never overdo it. I think I also did grow up in a culture where it's like, oh, like you're at your grandma's house and she's like, keep eating, like, you know. And I'm like, well, I just don't want to. Like, I'm full and I'm satisfied. And so I'll like finish my first serving, and if I'm satisfied, I'll stop, or if I'm not, then I'll just add a little bit of a second serving. And yeah, that's really it.
Yeah. And I almost was like trying not to laugh during that, only because like I can just tell how simple and easy it is for you. And it's like, well, I just like, you know, I eat when I normally eat, and I'm just hungry, and then I don't know, if I'm satisfied, I stop. If I'm not, I keep going. Because like, that is how simple it is. But again, like, when you're listening to this podcast, like, it takes time to get there. And like, it took so long for me to get there too. And it was like, after I started calorie counting, I thought like I could never listen to my body again, because there was like, I thought I had to know the calories. But really, it's like your body has so much more wisdom than you could ever know. And like, it will let you know if you're hungry, it'll like tell you to eat. And when you're done, it's going to tell you to stop. And you can get to that point where you have these cues figured out, and then it just becomes really effortless throughout your day. And I also think it's important to note that like, you do have like an eating routine or schedule of sorts. And I think sometimes people think, okay, if I'm gonna start listening to my hunger and fullness, it's gonna be like this magical moment where I'm just like, okay, I'm hungry, let's go eat. And like, you can still have routine around it. And I encourage most of my clients to eat like every 3 to 6 hours-ish to get into that more regular routine, because so many dieters are just used to like, okay, can I skip this meal? Can I fast for like another 12 hours today and like go even longer without food? And it's like, no, like most people, they eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like that's how the majority of our society eats. We have something going on there that's working out for most people. And so like, it's okay to have a bit of that schedule. But I also know that like you're flexible with it. It's not like I have to eat within 2 hours. And so many people, they want that rule of like, well, do I have to eat after 1 hour or 2 hours, 3 hours? It's like, well, just have like a range, like about that's about when I'll eat. And then you just wait till you're hungry.
100%.
Okay, do you ever overeat? And if you do you feel like guilty? What do you do if you do overeat?
Yeah, there have been a few times where I have eaten past me being full, and it's literally just because the food is so good that I just don't want to stop eating. Like I remember I was trying here in Mexico, obviously, and I was trying this new Oaxacan mole dish, and it was so delicious, and I had extra rice because I was like, wow, like I'm so happy I'm experiencing this food. Then I had my few extra bites, and I was like, okay, that's good. And then I stopped. And sometimes it's like, it's okay to like allow yourself to have a few extra bites just because you're enjoying the taste and flavors so much. But truly it would just be to enjoy the food. And then I always, stop after a couple extra.
What percentage of the time do you feel like that is?
Where I eat extra?
Yeah.
Probably maybe like 2% of the time. Yeah.
That's interesting because it's like, some people think like, oh, if the food is good, I'm always going to overeat it because it's like just good. I mean, I kind of like know like the answer to this, but it's like usually when the food is really good. But like, what does something have to be in order to be like worthy of overeating?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be like special and unique, like not something that I'm eating all the time. Maybe it's like a unique experience or a unique culinary experience. I'm at this Michelin star restaurant. Wow, this dish is so good. Like compliments to the chef. Let me have some extra bites. It's like, it's when food becomes an experience and you just want to indulge a little bit more because why not? You only live once. Let's have a few extra bites. But then that's it. I don't really feel the need to do that with my regular everyday food just because it's not like an extra special experience and I don't feel the need to eat more.
Yeah. And I want you all to hear too, it's like a few extra bites. Like you're not saying, screw it, we're being bad today. Like let's let loose and let's have like 10 cakes together and like go crazy for the next 4 days. Like, but that's what we do when we're dieters because it's like, we feel so restricted all the time. And then all of a sudden, like, we get this pass to overeat. And it's like, well, I got to get my overeating in while the time is here. But really, it's like, no, it's more of an intentional decision of like, this food is really good. I want a few extra bites of it. I enjoy it. And then do you ever feel guilty after? Or what are your thoughts like after that happens?
Yeah, I don't feel guilty because I'm only human and it's okay for me to want a few extra bites of what I'm eating. I don't think that's shameful. I mean, how lucky and blessed am I to be able to eat something so delicious that I want more past me being full. So no, I'm just always just grateful for the food and the experience.
And I know you love to eat out, which I do too. We've been eating out so much here in Mexico because like all the food is so cheap. But do you have any like different thoughts at restaurants or like any fears or like what if this food has too much fat or sugar or calories? Like what, do you have any different thoughts at restaurants?
Yeah, usually when I look at a menu, I mean, I know what I typically like to eat and what I go for. I do try to just avoid the foods that I know maybe make me feel a little bit more sick, especially in a new country. So I typically try to stick with the leaner meats like turkey, chicken, or fish, or sometimes I'll just go full veggie. I know I'm gonna eat a lot of vegetarian foods with Amber. It's been great. But yeah, I think when I order those meals, it's usually the sort of meat that I like. And I do try to aim for a bit more of the healthier options as well, except for when I'm feeling like a bit more extra, then I'll have the other option. But then yeah, just the understanding that usually the restaurant portions are a lot bigger than what I normally eat. So then I normally just take food home to go and then I'll have that as part of my meal later.
Yeah, exactly. Then you get leftovers. Whenever someone says to me like, I'm scared of wasting food, like I paid for it, it's like, well, when you get leftovers, you get twice the amount of food. Like you're saving money because now you don't have to make anything for tomorrow. So
Absolutely.
it's like actually the best deal.
Yeah, I love it. I love leftovers so much.
Yeah. So the last thing that I wanted to cover is how you view your body, because, you know, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see our beautiful friend Zareen here. But Zareen is what I would consider like the cultural ideal of a naturally thin person. Of course, cultural ideals like shift a lot over time. But I think it was interesting how you mentioned earlier too, like how that cultural shift has impacted you. Like as people have been wanting more curvier bodies, it's like, well, maybe I should try to get curvier. And then you're like, no, that's like not me. That's not my unique body. And so tell me about like your body image, how you view your body, how you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, like you said, I've always been on the naturally skinny side. When I was younger, I definitely might have been considered a bit underweight, but I was just a child, you know, that's actually kind of common. But then growing into my adult body, kind of keeping the same frame, but also just seeing all the different body standards now being presented to me in social media, I was kind of like, but why though? I mean, this is my natural body, so why would I want to change that? And like, yeah, with the whole rise of the Kardashians and everything, different bodies they're coming in and out of fashion. That has never really made sense to me because it's really not that easy. And also when it comes to certain body standards, it's like, well, is that appealing to the male gaze in a certain way? Mm-hmm. And as someone who identifies as bisexual and also dates women, I have never been so critical about a woman's body where it's like, oh my God, like she needs to look like this specific celebrity or she needs to have this specific feature. I think that if you truly do love somebody or want to pursue someone in a serious way, all that goes out the window. I mean, I think women are so naturally beautiful, and when we embrace like our natural beauty, it doesn't get better than that. Mm-hmm. It truly doesn't. Like I think there's also personally nothing more attractive than someone embracing their natural selves and just really honing in on their natural beauty. And yeah, just with the way that I look at women in that space, I expect nothing less from the men in my life to be women in that way as well. So when you remove sort of the superficial reasons for wanting a certain body type, I think you sort of have an understanding that, oh, like removing those perspectives, what is your body actually for? And it's like to have healthy movement in your life, like with your body, you're able to walk, you're able to run, participate in sports. I mean, there's so much that your body provides to you on a day-to-day basis. And yeah, I want to support my body the way my body supports me. And that is in honing in on my body type, what works for my body type and what works for me. And yeah, actually something that I have done is like just look into celebrities that have like similar body types even and be like, okay, like what do they wear? What clothing is flattering on them? And how do they present themselves? And I think, you know, just surrounding yourself with positive body image and healthy role models, and that is really, really beneficial in keeping that healthy perspective on your own body as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And seeing like those bodies that look like mine, they're also beautiful, they're also lovable, they're also worthy. And like bodies exist in so many different shapes and sizes. And I also want to point out that like you're thin and you're not happy all the time. Like guys, Zareen gets sad. Big surprise. I do. And a lot of times people think though, I'm gonna get skinny and I'm gonna arrive at this magical fantasy land. And this is definitely what I thought, that like if I could just lose another 5 pounds, like everything in my life will be perfect. All the guys will love me, everyone will want to be my friend, I'll be successful, I'll be hot, like all of the things would come true. And then you get there and it's like, where's my magical rainbows and butterflies and unicorns? Like nothing is that special there. All that's changed is your number on your scale. And so I think it's important to see that like, you know, even when someone is at this like naturally thin ideal, like your life isn't necessarily better because of it in any way or form.
100%.
And everyone faces obstacles and hardships and barriers to their life that they have to overcome. And like I've gone shopping with Zareen and she will face like the other problem at times where like you have sometimes clothes are too big for you and like it's hard to find clothes that might fit you in the right way. And some people think, oh, if I could just go shopping at, 10, 20 pounds lighter, like everything would be easier. And it's like, maybe not. Like clothes are so different everywhere. Like no clothing item is going to fit everyone 100% of the time. And so it's just important to realize that whatever body you're at, requires acceptance and love and gratitude, and that's only something you can create now versus something that will come from a certain shape or size.
Yeah, 100%. And like going off of what you said, I actually like find it very difficult to online shop just because usually like it just doesn't fit me. Like the bottoms, the top. I'm also like a taller woman, and so that also like just affects like clothing sizes. And I think like we're all shaped so differently. Like it's not like a one size fits all scenario. And so yeah, definitely has not been like, and also in general, life has not just been a magical la la land because of my body type. I definitely, you know, there's still so much more to life than just your body.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, Zareen, thank you so much for coming on today. This has like already been my favorite episode, I think.
gosh.
And I know everyone's going to find it so helpful to have your perspective. So thank you for coming today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.